added in rather a humble tone, "It's pretty poor sport hunting fidgets, I know, but it's about all I can get nowadays. Hope they didn't hurt you," he added politely. "Not a bit," said Rudolf, "but I'm sure I'm glad you came along when you did, for I don't know how we ever would have got rid of the beastly little things. Only when we first saw you, we thought—" "Oh, I know," interrupted the stranger hastily. "You thought it was something worse. That's it, that's just my luck. I'm the gentlest creature in the world, and everybody's afraid of me. My business," he explained, turning to Ann, "is to redress wrongs and to see after the ladies, but, bless you, they won't let me get near enough to do anything for 'em." A great tear rolled down his long nose as he spoke, and he looked so silly that Ann and Rudolf could hardly help laughing at him, though they did not in the least want to be rude. "And then," continued the creature, sobbing, "I'm so divided in my feelin's. If I were only all Knight now, or even all Mare, I'd be thankful, but a Knight-mare is an unsatisfactory sort of thing to be." "A Knight-mare? Oh, how dreadful!" cried Ann, drawing away from him. "Is that what you are?" "There! You see how it is!" exclaimed the Knight-mare, tossing his long black mane. "Nobody's got any sympathy for me. How would you like it? Suppose you were a little girl only as far as your shoulders, and all the rest of you hippopotamus, eh?" "I wouldn't like it at all," said Ann, after thinking a moment. "Then no more do I," said the Knight-mare, and sighed a long, sad sigh. "Would you mind telling us how it happened?" asked Rudolf politely. "Not at all," said the Knight-mare. "You see, I was a great boy for fighting in the old days, though you mightn't think it to see me now, and I used to ride forth to battle on my coal-black steed, this very mare whose head I'm wearing now. Well, of course, I was a terror to my enemies, used to scare 'em into fits, and I suppose it was one of those very fellows that got me into this fix, dreamed me into it one night, you know, only he got me and my steed mixed. We've stayed mixed ever since, and the worst of it is, I oughtn't to be a bad dream at all. I was the nicest kind of a good dream once. Why, I belonged to a lady who lived in a castle, and she thought a lot of me, she did." "It's too bad," said Rudolf sympathetically, "but isn't there anything you can do about it?" "Nothing," groaned the Knight-mare. "Nothing at all. At least not till I can find a way to get rid of this ugly head of mine. If there was anybody big enough and brave enough now to—" He interrupted his speech to stoop down and snatch up something from the grass. It was Rudolf's sword, which he had dropped from his hand in his weariness after his battle with the Fidgets. "What's this?" the Knight-mare cried. "Hurrah! A sword!" "My sword," said Rudolf, stretching out his hand for it. "Just the thing for cutting heads off!" cried the Knight. "Will you lend it to me like a good fellow? Mine is lost." "What for?" asked Rudolf suspiciously. "Why, to cut my head off with, of course. Or, better yet, perhaps you'll do it for me. Come now, just to oblige me." Rudolf took back his sword, while Ann gave a little scream and seized both the Knight's mailed hands in hers. "I'm sorry not to oblige you," said Rudolf firmly, "but I can't do anything of the sort. I never cut anybody's head off in my life, and the sword's not so awful sharp, you know. And then, how can you tell a new head will grow at your time of life?" "Oh, I'd risk that," said the Knight-mare lightly. "I do wish you'd think it over. If you knew what a life mine is! All my days spent browsing around on shoots here in the wood, without a single adventure because nobody's willing to be rescued by the likes of me. And then the nights! Oh!" groaned the poor fellow, "the nights are the worst of all." "What do you do then?" asked Rudolf and Ann. "Oh, I'm ridden to death," sighed the Knight-mare. "As if it wasn't bad enough to scare folks all day not meaning to, without being sent out nights to do it on purpose." He looked over his shoulder as if he was afraid some one might be listening, and then added in a low voice, "And it's not my fault either. I swear it's not. They actually make me do it." The children shivered, for they guessed at once that they meant the Bad Dreams. Then they suddenly recollected poor little Peter, whom their last adventure and the Knight-mare's talk had quite put out of their minds. "I tell you what," said Rudolf suddenly, "I'll make a bargain with you. My little brother has run away to find the Bad Dreams, and we have got to find him and bring him back. If you'll lead us to him, and help us all you can, why, I won't promise, but I'll see what I can do for you." The Knight-mare gave a loud, triumphant neigh. "Odds bodikins and bran mash!" she cried. "You're worth rescuing for nothing, the whole lot of you. But," he added mournfully, "I ought to warn you to keep away from that crowd. They're a bad lot. You'd do better to cut along home." "We can't do that," cried Rudolf and Ann together. "Then come with me," said the Knight-mare. "It's only a short way to—" He was suddenly interrupted by a fresh commotion in the wood. Heavy bodies were parting the undergrowth back of where they stood. Before the children could think of escape, four strange figures sprang on them from behind. Their arms were seized, they were tripped up, and they landed very hard upon the ground. Both knew in a moment what had happened. The Bad Dreams had caught them. End of chapter 12.